Hello and welcome to the Business Standards Morning Show. I'm Kanishka Gupta and here is a look at the stories for the day. The US rolled out 5G services on Wednesday, notwithstanding the US Federal Aviation Administration's warning and fears that it may interfere with crucial onboard instruments. Amid this fear, several countries either rescheduled or cancelled flights to American cities. But the European Union Aviation Safety Agency said that there was no immediate safety concern in the region where the latest technology is also being introduced. India, meanwhile, will also launch this service in the next few months. So, will the new technology come in the way of flight safety here? Our next report tries to find some answers.
Last February, the two biggest telecom operators in the US, AT&T and Verizon, spent a whopping $76 billion to buy mid-range spectrum so they can start offering 5G services. After spending billions more to set up the infrastructure for internet speeds 10 times faster than 4G, the operators were gearing up to launch the service in December. But this date was first pushed back to January 5th and later again to January 19th. This delay was due to concerns that the new set of radio frequencies they purchased, called the C-band, could interfere with a critical instrument that helps pilots land a plane. A day before the new technology was set to go live, airlines in the US warned of a catastrophic aviation crisis that could render a number of wide-body aircraft unusable and strand thousands of Americans overseas. The panic came to a head when international airlines like Air India, Emirates and Japan Airlines cancelled flights to some American cities that were scheduled to arrive on January 19th, citing uncertainties because of the 5G rollout. Let us understand what the airline industry is worried about. The US aviation regulator warned of a potential interference with aircraft's radar altimeters, which measure how far above the ground a plane is traveling by bouncing radio waves off the ground. They are crucial for landing in low visibility situations caused by rain or fog. Altimeter helps in automated landings and also activates reverse thrust to slow the plane upon touchdown. The US aviation regulator feared that the instrument may give wrong readings if its radio waves don't bounce back from the ground because of 5G interference. Altimeters operate in the 4.2 to 4.4 GHz range, while 5G services in the US were rolled out on the 3.7 to 3.9 GHz range. The concern is that 5G frequencies come too close to spectrum band used by altimeters. Meanwhile, in India, the government plans to auction 5G airwaves in the 3.2 to 3.6 GHz band, a lower frequency than the US, providing for greater elbow room when it comes to dealing with aviation safety. Sareen & Co.'s Vinamra Longani tells us what India can learn from the US example as it plans to auction 5G spectrum this year.
Now, in my opinion, when you talk of it in the Indian context, what the telecom regulator at this point in time must do is to have detailed discussions with aviation industry stakeholders. That includes people like the airlines, more importantly, aircraft manufacturers, and also the civil aviation regulator, the DGCA, so that they can put together a plan pertaining to the rollout of 5G services close to aviation installations, particularly airports. Now, these discussions could include things like, the band of spectrum that is being auctioned and how and if that may impact aircraft, specifications of hardware that are going to be used around airports and at airports, and also things like, do we go down the way of Canada? Like, do we set up a buffer zone around our airports? The US Civil Aviation Regulator, they knew about the 5G rollout. They could have prepared well in advance to certify aircraft. And essentially what happened was wide-body aircraft like Boeing 777 weren't certified in time by the FAA. A host of countries where 5G has been activated without any issues. I mean, look at Dubai, for example. The whole airport is 5G activated, and it is home to the world's largest long-haul airline, Emirates. So, we've got to learn from people from countries like Dubai and the UAE, and also from mistakes made in the US.
Telcos in the US say the fears are overblown. For now, Verizon and AT&T have voluntarily agreed to suspend 5G deployment at key US airports, essentially creating buffer zones. The two companies blasted the US Federal Aviation Administration for its lack of preparedness as they kicked off their new service. C-band 5G has been deployed in about 40 other countries where the technology safely coexists with airline travel. European countries, South Korea, Australia and the UAE have not reported any aviation interference issues after 5G deployment. For instance, France mitigated risks by reducing 5G power levels around airports. The US has now cleared 5 altimeters for use in certain plane models. This allows 62% of the US aviation fleet to perform low visibility landings at airports where wireless companies deployed 5G C-band. With that, Air India has also resumed its flights to the US. Back home in India, a financial daily reported yesterday that Telecom Regulatory Authority of India may soon issue a statement saying that 5G rollout is unlikely to cause any disruption to flight operations in India. With better cooperation between the industry and regulators, India can avoid a situation where airlines and telcos are at loggerheads with each other ahead of 5G rollout, like what happened in the US.
After the clash of two technologies, let us move on to man's brush with nature. According to an estimate, Earth's temperature has risen by 0.14 degree Fahrenheit or 0.08 degrees Celsius per decade since 1880. And the latest decade was the warmest in recorded history. To know more about the climate change, which is also leading to erratic distribution of rainfall and increased probability of flash floods, Business Standard Sanjeev Mukherjee spoke to Mrutyunjay Mohapatra, Director General of Meteorology, India Meteorological Department. Let's join them.
Welcome to the show, sir. To begin with, just I want to understand with you that very recently IMD has come out with the annual climate statement, right? Which shows that there is an increase in the temperature, in the average mean temperature across the country. And 2021 was the 5th warmest year since 1901, and the decade was also the warmest ever decade in India's history. I just want to understand, what does it signify? What does it mean for the country?
The climate statement issued by India Meteorological Department indicates that the average temperature over the country has increased, and average temperature for 2021 over the land surface for the country as a whole is 0.44 degrees Celsius above the long period average based on data of 1981 to 2010. And if we look at the various years, we find that this is the 5th warmest year as per the record available from 1901 till 2021. But however, 2016 was the warmest, with the temperature being 0.71 degrees Celsius above the long period average. So it means that as a whole, the country temperature is in a rising trend, and the rise has been more significant in recent years, especially after 1970s.
Why is this happening? My question is, why is this happening?
The temperature of the Earth is changing because of the two important reasons. One is the natural variations because of various astronomical factors like relationship between sun and the Earth and the activity of the sun. And the other one is the anthropogenic activities, that is man-made activities. It is found that in recent years, the man-made activities in terms of the urbanization, industrialization, increase in populations, and all other economic activities are adding off certain gases which are helping in rising the temperature. And these gases are popularly known as the greenhouse gases, which includes carbon dioxide, methane, etc. So in India also, there is impact of the climate change. And because of that, there is a rise in temperature.
We have all noticed that in the last few years, there have been instances of severe adverse weather events, when sudden rainfall, sudden cyclones, the number of intensity of the cyclones have also correspondingly going up. Is it all because of the thing temperatures our average mean temperatures over the last few decades is rising?
But globally, it has been found that its impact on extreme weather is now well documented. It can cause the impact in terms of the frequency, intensity, or the severity of the extreme weather events. Considering India, yes, it is found that the frequency of very heavy rainfall events, say more than 15 centimeter in 24 hours, are increasing. And this increase has been found in different parts of the country. As a result, the probability of occurrence of the flash floods or urban floods has increased due to this changing impact on the rainfall activities. Like that, when there is rise in temperature or mean temperature, certainly the frequency of heat waves and severe heat waves are also increasing.
Agriculture is one of the main impact where agriculture has the biggest impact of climate change. Do you think the increase in the rise in temperature will have an impact there as well in the agriculture?
Rise in temperature and variability, increase in internal variability of the rainfall, increase in extreme weather will have a large-scale impact on the agriculture in terms of yield, in terms of the input cost, in terms of safety and security of the farmers and our crop. So therefore, we have to go for adaptation of the varieties of the crops which will be sustainable towards the changing scenarios.
Thank you for joining us, Mr. Mohapatra. It was really nice to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Climate change has also started influencing investment decisions, a recent report has said. Meanwhile, equity markets have been on a downtrend for the better part of this week. The Sensex has fallen over 1,800 points in the 3 days, while the Nifty 50 is testing 17,750 level. Given this, analysts suggest investors accumulate quality names from the sectors which can benefit from budget announcements. Watch our next report to know which are the stocks and sectors that analysts are most bullish on.
The countdown to Budget 2022 has begun, and India is in the midst of a resurgence of coronavirus cases driven by the new Omicron variant. While this poses downside risks to the economic growth, the impact is not expected to be significant. Nonetheless, contact-intensive sectors such as travel, tourism, and hospitality have been time and again hit by the pandemic's onslaught. Besides, private consumption is yet to come to pre-COVID levels, which underscore stressed household incomes. Data provided by CMIE, or Center for Monitoring Indian Economy, suggests that stress is more in lower tier and rural households where consumption to income ratio is generally higher. Given this, the street expects Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to dole out fiscal measures to increase disposable incomes of people at the bottom of the pyramid. On the tax front, D-Street experts don't expect any change in tax slabs. However, media reports suggest that Centre could increase the standard deduction limit, which currently is at 50,000 rupees, available to salaried taxpayers and pensioners by 30 to 35%. So how can market investors benefit from this? Yesterday, the BSE Sensex fell 634 points, taking its 3-day slides tally to over 1,800 points. The NSE Nifty, on the other hand, ended just above 17,750 mark yesterday. Given this, analysts suggest investors accumulate quality names from the space which can benefit from budget announcements. Let us go to G. Chokalingam, founder and chief investment officer at Economics Research, to know his preferred picks.
The biggest concern is the rising oil price. because that can, if it goes close to 100, that can pull down the market much more. That's what I'm saying. So in the next few weeks, it is very important to monitor the oil. So therefore, what sector we are suggesting in this environment is the one which will benefit out of this rising oil. They will act as a defensive in the event of oil price. One team I would strongly recommending, to my research clients. For example, you have Oil India, oil producer. You have India Glycol producing the petrochemical through agricultural route, using the molasses, So these are some of the stocks I feel, because otherwise I feel the weakness may continue in the market. So if still somebody wants to look at some more sector, then I would say that within a small cap, mid cap, look at the quality stocks in IT space, pharma space. So these are the 2-3 themes one can invest till budget time.
When asked to pick stocks that may benefit post-budget, Chockalingam went with the FMCG pack.
I would say that maybe one can think of FMCG because I believe, all these 2 years the government was helping the corporate sector to revive revenue and profits, and they succeeded in that objective. Now it is time for reviving the disposable income of individuals, which will be positive for FMCG.
For A.K. Prabhakar, who is head of research at IDBI Capital, quality stocks from defense, agriculture and capex should be looked at ahead of Budget 2022.
Budget, mainly tax purpose, nothing will happen. Whatever GST is a separate entity now. And I don't think any major tinkering and any taxes will happen. But the allocation towards defense, the allocation towards infrastructure and fertilizer subsidy is something which will be keenly watched. And with election in 5 states, agriculture will be an important sector to watch out. The PSU fertilizer stock, RCS, NFL, PAC, they benefit more because they are into urea. Even Chambal fertilizer benefits from this. Otherwise, I don't see a major resistance. And in the infrastructure, we like KNR construction, PNC infra. In defense, we like HAL, BDL.
That apart, markets also expect the government to focus on electric mobility, 5G technology and increasing allocation to healthcare sector. Given this, investors may look at large caps like L&T, M&M, Sun Pharma and Bharti Airtel, which have an upside potential of 11 to 15% from current levels. Coming to Friday's session, global cues such as bond yield movement, oil prices and FII activity will be the key market movers. Back home, Q3 earnings of RIL, HDFC Life, Vodafone Idea, PVR and SBI Life will be keenly tracked by market participants.
It's not just the markets, but the country too is keenly waiting for the Union Budget, which will be tabled on 1st of February. But what are its major components? Why does the government conduct this annual exercise? Our next report tells us more about it.
Under Article 112 of the Indian Constitution, the central government is bound to lay down the country's annual financial report. Also called the Union Budget of India, this is the most extensive account of the central government's finances. Tabled in Parliament every year, the Union Budget provides details of how much money the central government expects to raise in the coming financial year, along with how and in which sectors it intends to spend that money. However, the Union Budget is more than just an accounting document. It also reveals the broad policy positions of the government and serves as a platform for financial reforms. Till its 2017 iteration, the Union Budget was presented on 28th February. However, since 2017, the Finance Minister has been presenting it on the 1st of February. The budget gives the statement of receipts and expenditure for 3 consecutive years. These are the actuals for the preceding year, estimates for the present year, and estimates for the coming year. The budget also includes the Appropriation Bill and Finance Bill. Both the Houses of Parliament have to pass them before implementation on 1st April of the new financial year. The Appropriation Bill is a money bill that gives the government the power to withdraw funds from the Consolidated Fund of India in order to meet its expenses during the course of the financial year. Meanwhile, the Finance Bill contains key changes pertaining to direct and indirect taxes. The nodal agency responsible for producing the Union Budget is the Department of Economic Affairs, which comes under the Ministry of Finance. The budget is prepared through a consultative process that involves the Finance Ministry, the various spending ministries, and Niti Aayog.
Budget is not always populist, it also upsets many. While referring to some tough measures that he had taken in the 2012 budget, the then Union Finance Minister Pranab Mukherjee had said while quoting Hamlet, "I must be cruel only to be kind." That's all for today. We will be back with more news and analysis on the next episode. Stay tuned and thank you for watching. If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.